I bet you've never seen a video start like that before. We doing firsts around here. I'm contemplating whether I want to restart. You know what? Let's put that up and find out what I think about it afterwards. So hello and welcome, INTPs and others. I'm starting to realize, especially the things I'm talking about recently. Well, today's topic especially, I think will be relevant for a lot more people. And the topic that I'm thinking about. Let me read to you the note that I wrote, and I'll see if a title comes to mind about it. So the note I wrote it goes like this: every part of the cycle is essential. The proper framework is cycle, not progress bar. And the reason why this came up to me is because last night, so yesterday was quite busy. I every week on Sundays, I meet with a good friend of mine, INTJ, and we record a podcast. So we spent a good 3 or 4 hours working on that, and then I went home. And, I have the things that I want to do. Right, this is the book I have not read a single page of this book yesterday or today. Right. And I noticed that, and I noticed the attitude I was having, and I took a step back. I had a moment of clarity, and I said, wow, I think my attitude towards this, like me saying I haven't read a single page of this, I think my attitude towards this is to use the word dysfunctional. It is dysfunctional. It's like I'm trying to squeeze juice out of a rock, squeeze water out of a rock. Perhaps I should rethink my attitude towards the way I conduct my work. I'll use the word work, fine. The way that I conduct myself here. And I want to rethink it so that every aspect of it is given equal weight and value. Because I think what's happening here is, I've been talking about, at other times I've been talking about how the world, I think the world, I don't know if I said that to you, but I've been thinking and talking a lot about how I think the world is overweighting TE, extroverted thinking. And when all 8 functions actually have immense value, and they've demonstrated immense value, but the conventional way of thinking is TESI. And quickly what that means is TE, extroverted thinking, which is about what outcome do we want? Are we aware of what it'll take to get there? What are the different pieces? Who is in charge of what? Are we making progress? Let's track, and let's always ask, is there a faster way? How do we get there using the least amount of resources? That's what faster means. Faster means we have this much time. Let's use the time properly so that we know that the outcome is going to happen. This is TE, right? SI is about everything that you have done. Look back into your past and notice that everything you have done has brought you here to this moment. And if you just add another tally to today, you will have added up your tallies to the hundreds and the thousands, and now you can say I am a 20-year expert in this field, and I'm really glad that I put in that, I gained that experience, and I was consistent, and I had the endurance to build all that up, so that now I can tell you that I am confident. I have accomplished something. This is TESI, as you can hear the two things, right? And I have been theorizing and thinking about how the world, we come from a different time in a simpler world where that was considered a worthwhile shared aim, and a worthwhile shared like cultural perspective and goal. And one thing I think that really contributed to that was like the rise of the corporation, the rise of big business, and then people being hired into businesses. And if you're hired into a business, you'll be hired into a TE-focused organization, and the managers will be TESI, and thus everyone will start to share TESI language, and so it's spread throughout all of society. And I'm here to say that a one-sided focus on that is incomplete. It can lead to dysfunction. It is not the whole picture anyways. Even when TESI is a useful perspective to have, it is not the only perspective in that situation. So I wanted to explore that idea, see what conclusions I come to, and I encourage you to think through it with me as well. So the idea that I'm talking about here, to reiterate, is that I think the framework, the way of looking as this being a progress bar is the common way to look at it, but that can lead to a misunderstanding, a misinterpreted worldview. And the better worldview, the worldview that will lead to ultimately better outcomes, including better outcomes, but also overall health and overall vitality in the system. And that system, that perspective is cycles, a cycle. So let me see if I can find the latest message that Brian Johnson, if you've ever heard of Brian Johnson, he's doing like this don't die movement, right? And something that he has really what he's been doing is he's been turning his entire life. He's somewhere in his, I want to say he's in his late 40s, and he's conducting his entire life. Am I right? Anyways, he's middle-aged, and he's been conducting his entire life collecting data about how to be sure that he is aging as slowly as possible, such that perhaps with enough data, we can be his vision is we can be the first generation that doesn't die. And people type him as INTJ, and I can see that's very much the perspective he has here. That's his vision. And the number one thing that he found is like an excellent health indicator is sleep. Very simply, sleep, rest. Sleep is the most powerful drug available. Like, there's all this stuff that you can ask. Like, once again, right? We have a TESI bias in society just because of history. So people are going to say, I have limited time. How do I best use my time for the outcomes? Oh, well, sleep doesn't work towards my outcomes, so I need to minimize sleep. How do I sleep shorter? How do I sleep shorter and work longer? Because if I work longer, then I'm better using my resources. However, what we see here, what he has discovered is sleep is better than any medicine we know of. Like even if we have a miracle drug, once again, that's the TE desire is like, if only I could take a drug and then that would just handle health for me. I want the hack. I want the shortcut. But the data shows, Brian Johnson has found, you want to be healthy? Then prioritize sleep above everything else. No greater ROI anywhere, right? So I want to propose that the reason why sleep has become demonized is the lens that the person is holding, the perspective the person has about how to look at life itself. And I propose that the person looking at life is looking at life like it is a progress bar. Like there are things that you need to accomplish, And every task you complete along the way is progress, and every time, all the time that you spend not doing those things is wasted time. So here is that perspective, right? This is what I feel is the conventional worldview about how life is conducted, how your projects are conducted. Oh, you did one task? Oh, 71% now. If you're not working towards your task, your outcome, then that is wasted time, and it's just saying 71%. What's going on? You need to fix that, right? That is the I would say is the conventional worldview right now. Where's the progress? T. And I've been thinking about how perhaps a much more complete, holistic, and useful perspective can be the cycle. Let's see, can I zoom in here? Can be the cycle. And so if we're thinking about health, for example, we can rewrite this one to say rest. And we can say like eat well, exercise, supplements, rest. And the reason why I propose this is because I think this way of looking at everything we're doing allows us to continue to incorporate these things that in the progress bar model you would call dead time or lost productivity, as it's part of the process that you're doing here. So going back to my example of last night when I was too tired to do anything, but also it felt like I wanted to read some pages or something, and I realized, okay, I feel like there's something wrong here. I'm looking at this in a dysfunctional way that's causing me to just be unable to progress here. What's going on? And the idea came to me that I can think about rest as not time away from what I'm trying to do here, but time towards what I'm trying to do here. Rest and productivity are two sides of the same coin. One way to think about it is I can think the better I rest, or my rest today equals tomorrow's energy. My rest today equals tomorrow's energy. So resting is not progress bar time away from the outcome. Resting is part of the cycle, time towards the entire process. So what are a lot of things like that? Let's see if there's anything else I'd like to say directly about rest and health. I just want to make clear that this difference in worldview has huge what do you call it? Side effects. Depending on the worldview you have, you're going to take very different actions, and the outcomes will be very different. If you consider like okay, I've done the eating well, I've done the exercise, I've eaten the supplements. Okay, if I want to maximize my health maximization process, right? If I want to maximize my health, I now need to switch into the rest phase. You can see it as this is part of the process. If I'm maximizing my health, rest needs to be included in my process. You can see how this is a more holistic view and a more complete understanding of what it means to be healthy, right? But once again, if this was my perspective and I was only focused on the process, on the project I was working on, and rest, like with this perspective, rest is now wasted time, right? And we've done all of this research to discover that that can't be true. It can't be true. I mean, there's all these analogies I can think of, like when a tree is in winter, like you can say, oh, what are you doing, tree? Why aren't you growing leaves? But it is the time for the tree to rest through the winter, so that in the spring it can sprout the flowers and grow the fruits. There is a season for everything. And I feel that the extroverted thinking perspective can really one-sidedly ignore the rest of the owl, the rest of what the real cycle is. So that is a perspective for health. But I think this can happen in many different arenas. For example, in a conversation, I talk and you listen. And then perhaps I ask you a question and you talk and I listen. And if at any point I say, no, not going to do that part, then the cycle is broken, and something could be like whatever aim that you're actually aiming for, you could realize that it's a one-sided imbalance, and there is no that outcome will not be optimized. What are other examples? So in my previous video I talked about input and the importance of input for an INTP, and the aim that an INTP has for clarity of the problem space and a map of exactly what's going on, what we're looking at, right? That too is very important. I mean, like sure. As I have been writing and thinking about many times recently, TE is also very important. TE has been very useful in the past 100 or 200 years. Like the Industrial Revolution, all of these revolutions have created so much convenience and value in our world. However, I propose as a theory that what happened in that at the same time is that the entire world was pushed along the TE view, and people forgot that there are other things that are also important, and so certain ailments, certain problems emerged out of the imbalance. And one of those things can be TI, INTP style insight and map making and understanding. And that in itself, that alone, is a valuable thing. Like me telling you this on this video, I assert that this is valuable, and even TE, when they are in learning mode, can take something like this and become more effective TE users. However, a TE person won't naturally think this way and create something like this kind of conceptual map. So they could be quick, like in the process of completing their projects, they could be quick to dismiss something like this. But you cannot deny that it is not. You can't say it's not useful. It is useful. It's just not TE. It's just not part of the TE process, right? So what I feel I'm doing somewhat in this channel that we're sharing here is I'm exploring the idea that I feel we have always understood that every single function is valuable for their own purpose, and the other types do not think that way, and so they will not directly understand why those functions are valuable. But each type, my view is essentially each type understands why what they're doing is valuable. And in a very natural way, without directly attempting to collaborate, the different types will all be collaborating. For example, if I go to an art studio or art gallery and I'm looking at the paintings, I don't have to have this desire within me to express the human experience that I have and share it with you. I can instead observe each painting and get what I get out of them, while allowing the artist, who perhaps was ISFP, so this was an act of celebration of the human condition and spirit and creativity and an expression of them. Look at me, I'm in this painting. I can appreciate that. And there are times when that comes up in my own life, and I can understand, like, wow, this is a great thing that you did, right? I'm really glad this exists. In the same way, me sharing these ideas on this channel is not something that an ENTJ would do. They would say they wouldn't find it worth doing in their daily life. However, the products of what this process does, creating the maps to help a person understand what's going on so that they can shorten the timeline, that's when they can value it. And what I've been thinking about is how this means that each type, perhaps the ideal future is where each type is trusted to understand their own calling, their own path, and they take it all the way to as far as they can, and we share in the riches of what that creates, and we don't have to always try and squeeze it through the TE eye of the needle, right? I think right now we are attempting to squeeze everything through the TE eye of the needle, and it doesn't always work, and often what happens is the thing gets distorted. So I've been writing a lot on Quora recently, and if you'd like to follow me, you can. I'll put a link. And those are the kinds of ideas I've been sharing there. Part of what I aim to represent here on this channel is that the TINE perspective, the INTP perspective, is inherently valuable, and every once in a while the value will be apparent to other types, but the whole process, regardless, is valuable. Just as the fruit tree in the winter is growing and supporting itself, and you can say, oh, where are your fruits? Why do you have no fruits? Well, the fruits come once a year, and the things that the tree does all year round is what allows for those fruits once a year. So is there anything I'd like to say about this? Oh, okay, yeah. So this cycle thing. So another very practical example that you would likely relate to is exercise. How many days should you exercise per week? Well, if you treat sore muscles and lifting weights as the metric, as the measurement of progress in exercise, then you're going to want to exercise every day. And however, the results observed for that kind of process are probably suboptimal, because the ideal exercise process is one that does not dismiss and demonize rest. It understands that it is when you rest, the muscles are growing. And so when you can incorporate rest into your complete cycle, then what you will find is, wow, everything, now that I've taken account for everything in the process, I am maximizing my results. Right? And in the same vein, reading books is not wasted time. Reading books is what allows me to go through my process of creating the ideas that I can share with you. And for the people who find my ideas valuable, this equals a video. This equals a video. Just as resting equals growing muscles. Resting equals bodybuilding. Resting equals hard work. And it's linked to that huge idea of non-duality. To just bring up the big word, if you've ever heard of non-duality, I love that topic, by the way, so I'll go deep into it in another video. But to say real quick, what is tall? What is tall? What is short? Well, tall and short mean nothing until you have a reference point based on perhaps your own height. In order for you to have a perspective on what is one end of the spectrum and the other end of the spectrum, you must have a point in the spectrum. So at my height, I have a perspective on what's tall and what's short. Is that the perspective of a skyscraper? No, the skyscraper has a completely different perspective on what is tall and short, right? So what is tall and short? Tall and short is the result of taking infinity and reducing it down to a finite point. You do that, and now you have left and right. When you consider all of infinity, left and right doesn't exist. Right? And that's essentially how I think of non-duality. And why I go into that is what is me thinking about these kinds of processes and how the demonization of one side has really hindered the person's ability to accomplish what they're aiming to accomplish. If you demonize sleep, then you are taking a perspective that is dual, that is cutting out a part of the entire system. Just as the tree needs to go through winter in order to bloom in the spring. And if the whole winter people were saying, like, if people were resisting the winter, then that wouldn't help. That would only cause more expended energy for no additional output. Right? So in a bigger picture, the idea I've been reflecting on is like input equals output. Reading equals ability to share ideas. Eating equals excrement. The saying, you got to spend money to make money. But the more non-dual way to say that is money flows. It is a currency. It flows through the system. When it is not flowing, then there is perhaps some sort of disease, right? And I love the word currency. And then actually in Korean, the word for economy is 경제, which is aiding the flow. That's 경제, right? And the word in English is actually interestingly very different. I think the Korean word is much more an understanding of that flow thing. And the word currency is also useful there. But that is the non-dual view. And I'll focus in on non-dualism, non-duality in a different video, because I think it also allows people to understand what's going on so that they can release the parts that they've demonized, because those demonized parts are part of the system, and by demonizing it, the person is truly reducing their own effectiveness. But that's a big idea I wanted to cover today, which is that when I think one myopic thing that can happen in a lot of views, and specifically the TE view, is when you think of the world like this. When you think of the world like this, like 90% of what you do in a day feels like wasted time. It's like, oh, I wanted to read that book. I didn't read that page. I didn't read any pages today. However, that's such a myopic view of what's going on. There's so much more going on in your life beyond that book, right? And what I was exploring was, and sharing with you, that perhaps something like this is a much more holistic, much more complete, much more useful way to look at anything that you are doing. When I am not reading the book, what am I doing? Am I really wasting my time? Or am I simply going through the process that allows me to read those pages for that 1 hour in the day? I think at least like a sprinkle of this makes something like an exercise routine much better. Imagine like an exercise routine that considers rest and considers days where you don't work out, but not as like demonized things, but as like part of the process. You can imagine they'd probably be far more successful and far more effective than a exercise program that demonizes rest and demonizes days where you don't work out. So that's I almost have a feeling that I will probably add to this idea as I post more videos. But I wanted to start there and ask you the question: what have you been demonizing, and is it fair to demonize it? Because perhaps it is that also is part of the process. Arguments. Are you demonizing arguments, for example? Things like this. So I will end that there. And I would love to hear your feedback, and we'll talk about this another day. So I hope you have a great day. See you next video.